Christmas! Hiya, welcome back to Gosforth Handyman. I hope you're having a wonderful Christmas day so far. You've been waiting on this video forever. I've been promising a tour of my new router table that I've built for ages and ages. Well, I thought, what better day than on Christmas Day? And now you can think about how you're going to build one over the next, however many days that you've got off over the Christmas period. If you haven't got any days off, I'm so sorry, but you can think about it while you're at work. My old router table was an embarrassing mess. It was too dangerous for us to even consider showing it on YouTube videos. But I needed a new one. It was about time I built something decent. So I thought I would show you a guided tour of the table. I'm not going to show you how I built it because frankly, if you're using a router table and you don't know how to build a router table, you shouldn't be using a router table. It's just basically a glorified box, but it's one of the most important and useful tools in my shop. I use it for things like making panel doors, for doing custom moldings, for doing rebates on smaller pieces of wood. Essentially, anything where it's too dangerous to use a handheld router. So I needed a benchtop router table because I don't have anywhere for a permanent router table to be set up. When I am using it, I need it to be in the middle of my shop so that I can run 2.4 meter lengths of wood all the way through it if I need to. So by having it in the center of my shop, it gives me that flexibility to run long pieces through it. Now, obviously the only problem there is if it goes on top of my assembly table, it means it's probably going to be too high. Now, I wanted this to be about waist height, so I wanted it to be about, I think it was 40 inches I measured was a comfortable kind of height. Anything more than that, you're getting up to kind of throat and upper chest level, which isn't a really good idea with routers in case anything goes wrong. So I wanted to keep it kind of lower down, away from my head. So the design I came up with for the table had to be able to handle my Triton TRB001 router. Now this is a big 2000 watt router. It's heavy, it's dangerous, it's loud, it's very powerful, and not the sort of router that you want to put into a flimsy router table. That's why I kind of ruled out a lot of the cheaper off-the-shelf router tables that were just way too flimsy for a big router like this. I wouldn't be comfortable with it. UJK Technology make a beautiful router table, which if I had the money to spare, I probably would have just bought that. But with all the optional extras and everything that you'd need, including a router lift and everything else, you're probably looking at over £1,000 for the table. So not at the minute. I thought, no, I'm gonna build one. So I really like the Triton router. It's got a really good height adjustment mechanism built into it, which means that I don't need a separate router lift for the table because it's got a coarse adjustment and a fine adjustment built into the router itself. This particular router is variable speed from 8,000 to 20,000 RPM. It's also got a very clever on-off switch, which is designed so you can't accidentally switch the router on while the router is at full height in your table and the spindle lock's engaged, because obviously you don't want your router to accidentally switch on while the spindle lock's in. So this is what I've built. It has a carry handle on the top and can easily hang on the wall when I'm not using it. On my assembly table, I built a flip top with Euro hinges. So you'll see on the bench itself, I've got hooks along here where I keep obviously like cloths and stuff, but I've got my router spanner, just lives under there, so it's always at hand for changing the bits and whatnot. I've got my safety glasses are here, always to hand as well. We've got the NVR over here that you might have seen a separate video about. So this is the NVR that actually switches it on and off. This actually then plugs my entire bench into the wall. It's not plugged in at the minute, so that allows me to electrify my bench, which is awesome. Down in the bottom here, we've got a little kind of dust box. This just stops dust from the router falling down into my wood storage that I've got under here, but it also gives me a storage place for like router bits, 1/4 inch in there, 1/2 inch in there. I might come up with a better way of storing these at some point, but to be honest, at the minute, this is working pretty well. I've got like just a scrap push stick that I use here, whiteboard marker pen, which you'll see what that's for in a minute, screws for various bits and pieces, and the cheat sheet as well for speed settings and stuff for the router. What I've also got on here is dry wipe so that I can write Merry Christmas. So having this little bit of whiteboard on here, it's so handy because it just means you can like sketch out little bits that you might be working on, and you might need to think about like certain dimensions that you need handy. You might have a certain profile router bit and you want to kind of visualize how that's going to fit into a bit of wood. You can sketch it out on there. Just a quick reminder that you're going to be, I don't know, working at 12,000 RPM for this particular bit. And don't forget, before you switch your router on, just having this board here, I find so handy. And then in terms of the router table itself, as I said, hangs on the wall when I'm not using it, and then it easily attaches to the bench when I need to use it. So I've deliberately made it with this overhang on the edge, and the reason that's there is so that if I want, if I'm in a rush or whatever, I can just clamp it to the bench like that. Or what I generally actually do is screw it to the bench. And that's absolutely solid there, that's not going anywhere. I've then got the dust extraction port just at the back here, and I've also made it so that the entire port assembly is removable just in case you get any blockages or anything like that, but so far it's never blocked up and the dust extractions worked really well. So that just, it's like a rubber connector, so it just friction fits onto there, and then that just hooks straight onto my main dust extraction, which is kind of in that neck of the woods. The top and fence are both 25mm MDF, which is really sturdy. It ain't going anywhere, trust us on that. So this is a big heavy Triton router, and cheaper router tables can sag, and you've got to watch even with cheaper plates that you use, they can sag under the weight of the router. So you really don't want that when you're using big panel bits and whatnot. It can be massively dangerous and it can ruin the piece that you're routing. So hence having 25mm MDF on the base and 25mm MDF on the fence. And the fence is on rails on the back there and can move freely backwards and forwards as well. The reason I've not painted the top and fence is because these are waxed, and it just helps wood slide on the surface really easily, so there's no problems with wood getting snagged or anything like that. So every now and then I'll just give it another new treatment of wax, give it a quick polish. It takes literally 2 minutes, and it just makes it ultra slidey for sliding wood across. So the rails and the rails at the back here, let's see if I'll need to take the dust thing off to show you the rails at the back. So the rails here and here and here and here are all UJK technology rails. They're fantastic, seem to work really well. At some point I might upgrade the front rail to, you can get the wider one that has a track built into it that the coping sled can run in. At the minute I haven't found that I particularly needed it, so I'm not too bothered. These just go in, there's like T bolts that go into the rails. Oh, and by the way, all of these extra bits and pieces, I bought the M6 Jig Mating Kit from Axminster, and that just has everything in it that you could possibly imagine for making jigs. This is so handy, and it's going to be really useful for future projects as well. So that's where I got all the knobs and stuff from. The feather boards, again, horizontal and vertical feather boards. These are all UJK technology as well. So obviously that gives us a range of height for the feather board, which is more than enough for pretty much everything that I'm going to be routing. As I say, the fence is obviously fully adjustable as well, and slides because it's all waxed. Oh, and I've waxed the underside of the fence as well. It just slides really nicely. And then when you've got it in the right place, just lock it in place with these thumb things. And then, of course, down here, we've got more whiteboard strip all the way along here. Again, really handy if you have to write down some measurements while you're working and you want to just remember some certain stuff, again, it's just another place that you can scribble. And I've got another dry wipe thing on the back here on the right hand side. Again, this one's hidden away but can just be used for writing down maybe stuff that I want to write down that isn't going to show up in my videos. I've also on the left hand side here got all my router speeds written down just in case I can't remember them off the top of my head, which generally I do, but you know, sometimes you get a bit of a brain fart moment and you forget. And then, as I say, easily plugs into my NVR strip at the front here. To use it, I then plug that into the wall and that's me powered up and ready to go. Switch it on and off from the NVR there. In terms of height adjustment of the router itself, I'm not going to put this in properly, but I'll just show you, just so you can see it going up and down really. So at the minute it's at its full height, and if I want to drop it, all I do, I've got the height adjustment there. And generally when you're going to be adjusting the height of a router, when you're adjusting the height of a router, you're normally going to be down at kind of eye level with the router bit anyway, so I have no problems with having to get down here to adjust it because I need to be looking straight down at the bit anyway. So as I say, it's got a really good adjustment mechanism built into the router itself, and then for fine adjustment it's got this little knob here, and then that allows me to do really fine adjustment to the height to get stuff accurate to within, I would say, within 1/10 of a millimetre, no problem. Once I've got it at the perfect height, it's got a little locking arm around the back. I lock it and that's it, ready to go. The only bit that's a little bit awkward on this router is the speed adjustment, because that's round the other side of the router. You can do it by touch, or what I'll sometimes do is just get my phone in and use my phone as kind of a screen to see what it's on, or I set the speed before putting it in the bench. But that's the only thing that's a little bit awkward, is getting to the speed adjustment knob, because as I say, it's round the back. Not a lot I can do about that. If I turned it the other way round, I wouldn't be able to get to the height adjustment, and I think the height adjustment is more used than the speed adjustment. So obviously this router comes with a 1/2 inch collet. If I do want to use 1/4 inch bits in it, then I've got a collet reducing thing here, and it's also an extender as well. So that just goes in, and then I can use 1/4 inch bits as normal, obviously reducing it down like that. This collet extender also comes with a 1/2 inch thing for it, so that if nothing else, I can use it as just a general kind of extension bit. This is a beautifully engineered piece of machinery from Axminster. Quite expensive, but worth it if you're going to be using a router table professionally. And then finally, I hear you asking, what do you do if you've got a bigger bit that doesn't fit through the hole in the table? Well, the only bits that I use that are bigger than these kind of bits, every other bit fits through no bother. The only other ones that don't are my panel bits. And for those, what I do, I just have an extension piece that screws on the top. And then that allows my panel bit to come down as low as that, which is plenty low enough, and then my fence can come around it to whatever level it needs to come around it. And obviously you can use these kind of extender panels to whatever height you need it to be at to compensate for your bit, but it's really just so that there's not a massive hole under here for my other bits. I'm predominantly using slightly smaller bits on the table, but when I am using the panel bit, that's all I need to do, because I just need to raise this up slightly for the shape of the bit, and that does the job perfectly. So I'll put a bit in it, and I'll kind of show you it working. We'll do this one. And generally, I can get my spanner in at the top here for tightening the collet, but it's not the end of the world to drop it down and tighten it from underneath. The only trouble with tightening it from underneath is then the spindle lock doesn't automatically engage and you've got to physically hold the spindle lock button in. That's fine. So you feel it kind of click in and then you can tighten it. But generally speaking, I find it fine to tighten stuff from the top. Bring it up to height. Set the fence. Good. Check that we've got nice free rotation. What should I show it on? Let's see if I can find a bit of wood. This will do. This is just a little scrap off cut of pine, preferably not with bits of junk on the edges. That's going to get caught on the featherboard. It'll be a very random cut, this. I'll go for that. Safety glasses on. Mine's not working. Oh, I always forget that. If you've been adjusting the height on the Triton and it's been up to full height, you'll have to remember to switch it on the router itself. I'm afraid the tinsel's going to have to go. Santa hat, I think, should be fairly safe. Quickly test. Got my remote to hand for the dust, switch the dust on. Router on. There we go, perfect cut. Oh, and I'll quickly demonstrate how the NVR works as well. If you haven't watched my NVR video already, then please watch it because it will explain how I made this and the purpose of it. But just to show you, imagine I'm busy using the router and there's a power cut or someone trips over a power cable somewhere, so the router's on. So obviously I can switch it off just by hitting the big red button, but equally what happens if it's on? And someone trips over a power cord, you forget about it, you come back in, you plug the cord in, what's going to happen to the router? Nothing. So we're switched on there. And the NVR has done its job. It's cut the power and it won't come back on until I physically press the green button on here, just to demonstrate. Router is dead until you press the green button again. That's a really important safety feature on any router table. I would highly recommend you get a proper NVR switch so you don't accidentally mangle someone's head. Oh, and I might as well show you. You can see there's literally zero dust on the top of it. How well the dust extraction works. Let me just pop that away. So that's how well the dust extraction's working. There's virtually no dust in the dust box at the bottom here. All of it's getting sucked away through the dust port. And when I'm all done and dusted, the table goes away in literally 2 minutes. And then what I also normally do is screw down the flap top of my assembly table, and it just stops it kind of flapping about or stuff getting caught on it and stuff like that. So there you go, I hope you found that interesting. Please bear in mind that a router table ranks up there with table saws in terms of how dangerous they can be. They will happily mangle up parts of your body in a split second, so please be careful. There's lots of really good videos out there on router table safety. Don't use one unless you know what you're doing with it. Anyway, have a wonderful rest of your Christmas day if that is your thing. If it's not your thing, just have an amazing day anyway. I shall try and get another video out before New Year. If I don't manage to, have a very, very happy New Year as well. So from me and all of my family here at Gosforth Handyman, to you and all of your families wherever you are in the world, have a fantastic festive period, and I shall see you next time. Tatty bye!